Hello again. I'll try and make this video a lot quicker than yesterday's. So I just want to show you what I learned today about exercising and glucose. So the experiment continues. So essentially, aside from spiking after a meal, you can also see a big spike after high intensity interval training. That kind of workout where you go above 80% of your VO2 max, or 80% of your heart rate is probably another way of putting it. And we're going to start to see a rise in the glucose when in the bloodstream when you do that type of activity. So I just want to show you, this is me this morning, okay, at 6 a.m. I did a workout in a fasted state. Now, when I say in a fasted state, obviously it was 6 o'clock in the morning. I had fasted overnight because I was asleep, and I didn't have anything to eat or drink, a sip of water maybe, before I went and worked out. So this spike here is not food, this is my exercise. So what that signals is that you're working really hard, and your body is perceiving that workout as a stressor, because remember, not only food as a stressor has that response, but also things like exercise, lack of sleep, other sorts of stressors as well. So again, just like if it was food, you're releasing cortisol and other catecholamine hormones that are mobilizing glucose, so you can basically, flee or fight. Or in this case, work out. So it releases cortisol, and that goes to the liver, and it tells the liver to dump its short-term storage of glucose into the bloodstream to feed the muscles, so you can run away or fight. So this is, from an ancestral point of view, this is an advantageous thing. And when it's in the right context, when this is a positive stressor, like what it is for me here, it's called a hormetic or stressor, or hormesis. So even when you are fasted, like first thing in the morning, like I am here with, not having eaten, you still have access to glucose that's stored in your liver. So there's about 2 hours worth of glucose there in your liver, in that short-term storage to feed your muscles. So while we're looking at glucose, what we're really interested in is the insulin response. And the cool thing about the muscles is that they can take up glucose independent of insulin. So that's pretty cool. So that means you don't need insulin to use glucose there. Just your muscle contracting actually can facilitate that glucose uptake. So here's the good part though. And if you are after weight loss, and insulin might be an issue for you, and blood glucose might be an issue for you, your ears might perk up. So what we're doing is we're clearing the liver of some of the stored glucose, okay, using it in your muscles when we exercise in a high intensity fashion. So it's not just sitting in the bloodstream, and in doing so, you are more likely moving your body towards metabolic flexibility. That's a good thing. That's what we want, that ability to use fat and glucose for energy. That's the ideal, because when you deplete the liver glucose, your body still needs energy, and it's going to do that by starting to tap into your fat stores, okay, and burning that stored fat. So when I am working out fasted, and I see a spike like this, I know that essentially I'm moving into that fat burning, okay? So you could measure this later in the day. You could go and measure your ketones if you wanted to. So ketones are essentially a measure of the fat burning that's taking place, and you will likely see your ketones go up. And some of you may have heard of the keto diet, okay? And this is what the keto diet is aimed at, keeping us in ketosis, where we are using fat for fuel. So I haven't done this, I haven't measured my ketones, but it might be a cool experiment to do so. So that spike's not something to worry about. You're actually kind of coupling that spike with the glucose being used by the muscles. So you won't see that sort of response with a less strenuous workout. So if you are going for like a little jog, or even my walks don't spike it like that. I did some weights yesterday. They didn't spike it like that either. The other thing that I wanted to point out on my, my little graph here is this little rise here is actually my breakfast. So if you watched my video yesterday, you would have seen my spike that my breakfast was causing me, which for me was alarming, because I thought I was eating what was for me a healthy breakfast. And, you know, there was still a lot of nutrients to offer in that breakfast, but I was spiking my glucose. Now, we've got to remember, if you go and look on the diabetes website, you're going to see probably much larger bookends. We're talking about optimal health, optimal metabolic health, which is going to keep you out, hopefully out of disease in the long term. So the ranges are a lot tighter. So I don't want to see my glucose go anywhere above about 6.1 to 7.4 maximum when I have a meal. So I actually sat at 6.2 this morning. What I changed was I didn't use any raw honey. I didn't use any maple syrup. I used half a cup of blueberries as opposed to a whole cup. So I can live with that. I used a little bit of, I had some xylitol in the cupboard, so I sprinkled a little bit of xylitol in with my blueberries as well. I'm not really into those sorts of sweeteners, but I did need a little bit more than what the berries were going to provide me, or at least that's what I felt like eating. I wanted something a little bit sweet. So that's the rise there. And you can see, if you compare to my yesterday's graph, I should have put it up side by side. There, so far today till, you know, about midday, my graph is looking a lot more like rolling hills and valleys, as opposed to, you know, peaks and troughs. And that's what we're trying to stay away from. Anyway, I hope that's helpful to somebody to hear, and I'll keep sharing, and hopefully you can take something away from my little experiment.